This is Dr. Rob Harder with the Nonprofit Leadership Podcast, Making Your World Better. What does it take to be an effective nonprofit leader today? What are the biggest challenges? What are the biggest obstacles? How should nonprofits fundraise in an economy that is constantly changing? All of these reasons combined led me to start this show. And it's my hope that through this series, people can learn not only what it takes to be an effective nonprofit organization, but to hear from effective leaders who are successfully making a positive impact in their communities. We hope you enjoy this show, as together we hear how they are making their world better. Hey everyone, this is Rob Harder, and you're listening to the Nonprofit Leadership Podcast. Thanks so much for tuning in today. I've got a special guest today, and she's from DonorBox. If you've been watching my show for a long time, you know DonorBox has been this amazing partner and sponsor of my podcast for many years now, and they provide great products. They really do. I've gotten to know a lot of the team there, and they truly provide good tools. That's why I feel so good about having them sponsor the podcast. And so I got Jena on the show today because she's going to talk a bit about not just the tools that they offer, but we're going to talk more broadly about the trend lines that she's seen in the fundraising world, particularly as it pertains to social impact organizations. Jena and if you remember, Britt Stockert, she was also on the show not too long ago, and they both are interacting with nonprofit leaders across the country. And because of the role they have at DonorBox, they get to know a lot of the issues going on, the problems people are facing, the barriers people are bumping into. And so this is a really interesting conversation that we have, because I'll talk everything about what are the big trends that are shaping social impact fundraising in 2025 and what do you anticipate for 2026. We're going to talk a little bit about the differences that Millennials and Gen Zers are having now on the fundraising landscape and how should nonprofits respond. We'll also talk about AI and automation. What is that right sweet spot between investing enough in AI that really helps your organization, but not depending on AI to do everything for you, because it can't. And so really a lot of interesting conversations, and she is very knowledgeable about these issues. And because she has her own podcast, she's just a natural speaker as well. So I'm really glad you've tuned in. This is a fascinating and fun conversation. Again, Jena Lynch from DonorBox. Now on to the show. This podcast is sponsored by DonorBox. DonorBox, helping you help others with the best donation forms in the business. Well, hey everyone, welcome back to the Nonprofit Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Rob Harder, and today I've got a special guest, Jena Lynch. Jena, it's so good to have you on the show today.
Thanks for having me. This has been a long time coming, and I'm excited for this conversation.
Yeah, well, probably many of you know Jena because she hosts her own or co-hosts her own nonprofit show. And so I encourage you to check that out. We'll give you more information in the show notes. But yeah, Jena, you're a pro at this. And what I truly, as I mentioned before we hit record, you're in this world of the nonprofit social impact sector all the time. And I know you go to a ton of seminars and conferences all over the country. So you kind of get an interesting perspective in my mind, particularly as it pertains to fundraising. And so I thought this would be just a good conversation to have. And maybe we could start with some of the trends you're seeing. So let's start with that. Like when you interact with nonprofit leaders across the country, even across the world, what are the trends that are shaping social impact fundraising in 2025? And is there anything as you're looking towards the future even you want to speak to? Anything from monthly giving, digital or hybrid events becoming the new norm? Anything you just feel like, hey, these are trends people should be aware of. And let me tell you what my experience has been so far.
Yeah, it's interesting. People love talking about trends as if there's going to be one big, shiny, brand new thing that changes everything. And every start of the year, we always publish a blog article and a podcast episode about what the trends will be for the year. And by the end of the year, maybe they have come to fruition and maybe they haven't, right? And while there will always be new and exciting developments in the sector, shiny new toys and best practices, I will play devil's advocate here and say that relying on trends to determine your strategy is not exactly sustainable. I will say this, what I've seen happening this year and what I think will continue into 2026 feels more like a mindset shift among nonprofit leaders, right? Last year's big talk was AI, and maybe we'll talk about that a bit. And of course, that will always be a big part of the conversation. But I think leaders have collectively decided, like, we can't build our organizational future on reactive fundraising anymore, right? We've had a few years of turbulence. This year in particular has been really interesting, right? Our economic swings, our delayed government funding, our unpredictable grant cycles, and a lot of things have left a lot of folks having to pivot, left a lot of folks having to wait for things. Leaders are moving away now from strategies that depend on things that they can't control. So I think the biggest trend I'm seeing is like, I don't know how to put this, almost a return to the basics. Leaders are they're anchoring around revenue that gives them sustainability. They're finding that stability is maybe unsurprisingly individual donors. A lot of our clients here at DonorBox and just in the community in general, in my community in Atlanta, uh, waiting on those grants or losing those grants. Oh man, that hurt, right? And so leaders are realizing that if they deepen the relationships with the supporters that they have, and they make it easy and they make it meaningful for them to stay connected, they can weather almost any external uncertainty, right? Um, uh, and so I guess the trend from all of this is of course, yes, individual giving, maybe not particularly exciting or innovative. Um, that's also why recurring giving, and this is what we talk about a lot at DonorBox too, is becoming recurring giving is just a major leadership priority this year, right? Britt, our fundraising coach at DonorBox, we talk all the time to executive directors that are just like, hey, if we can increase our donors by 10%, we'll finally be able to plan next year without guessing, or we'll finally be able to roll out this program. And mostly donors just behave differently. I know you've seen this too, right? They stay longer and over time they give more and they stay tough seasons and they give leaders um, this predictable base to plan around, right? And so I think that's the trend, right? Investing, realizing, going back to the basics, building on those relationships, focusing on those individual and monthly donors. And then I think the second part that kind of goes hand in hand is like this always on fundraising mindset is not it. To put it bluntly, it's not it. So you're moving away from how do we send more messages? How can we be the squeaky wheel to how can we create fewer moments, but the ones that we do create are even more meaningful, right? How
Okay. Let's
can
double
we,
click on that. So
yeah.
fewer moments, but the moments you have, you really got to make sure these are really special. They're intentional. They're
Mhm.
relational. Talk a little bit more about that, what you're seeing.
Yeah, I think it's knowing who your community is. And that can come from a lot of different things. It's active listening at its finest. It's making sure that whether you're operating in a spreadsheet or a CRM, you're spelling out your segments, you are building out those donor profiles, you are creating journeys for each type of person, your major donors, your first-time donors, your donors that just came up on their first giveversary, whatever that is, really speaking to their interests. And while yes, it can be a lot of work to create those individual, thoughtful journeys, those are the things that pay off, those touch points that go, wow, they really know who I am and why I give, why I want to be involved. And again, that goes back to that sustainability piece. And, um, I'd say, yeah, that just, it's not about doing less. It's doing what matters most and focusing your efforts around something that uh, will feel meaningful to your community. It was long-winded.
No, it's good. Meaningful is good. Intentional is good. Well, in fact, kind of getting to the retention and getting, making it more meaningful. I think one of the reasons why you probably say that is this is, again, new trends that I've seen. And I just had a friend that was doing an event last week, and they said exactly what the data is showing is that they're raising more money overall, but there's less people giving. So there was the few big outliers that are giving more dollars. And so the good news is right now, anyway, you look like, oh, wow, we hit our, goal and actually exceeded by 10% or 20% or whatever it was. But the number of overall givers is actually still going down. This is nationwide, every organization. Again, this happened right where I live here just last week. And so for you, it sounds like maybe reading between the lines, if you're more meaningful and intentional with the donors that are giving again and again, the hope would be, right, that they actually would retain and they would give. And so you're both getting people that are giving more, but also more people start giving because they stay with you. You're keeping that relationship strong. What do you think? Is that what you're seeing that's effective?
Yeah, yeah. I think this is like the paradox of the sector right now, right? And I think leaders are very aware of the fact that this is not sustainable long term, right? To have these fewer donors, even if they are giving more. I will say this because I don't want to sound all doom and gloom, right? I think what's encouraging is that leadership, the response is not panic, it's intentionality. So like you said, right? We're focusing heavily on the first year donor experience because that's where the biggest drop off happens. So instead of treating a new donor like a transaction, they're treating that as a moment, the beginning of the relationship. And that requires warmth and clarity and a sense of purpose, just like any relationship that you've had in your life, right? If you want it to be sustainable, you give it your all, especially at the beginning. So I think that's a big part of it, right? And I think leaders too are broadening their definition of engagement, right? So what I mean by that is someone who isn't giving financially this year, I don't like to consider them a lost donor, right? They're a supporter that might just be navigating a tough season, and I treat them as such. We are keeping those relationships alive through storytelling, maybe through volunteer opportunities, through community updates, things that remind people that, hey, you can't give these dollars right now, and that's okay because you're still a part of this community, right? And so that's an important part of that engagement piece too. Don't ignore the folks that aren't giving and assuming that they're not going to give again, and invite them to be involved in other ways.
Okay. All right. Let's move on to millennials and Gen Zers. They're giving in a little bit different ways than previous generations. What are you seeing, again, as a trend? Not that you based everything on it, but just in more of understanding and having information is helpful to know how best to engage with these next two generations coming up. How are they changing the landscape when it comes to fundraising and nonprofits specifically?
I always get excited when this question comes up because millennials and Gen Z are definitely influencing the sector in ways I think are actually really healthy and surprisingly stabilizing. And I'll say this up front, I am a millennial.
Okay,
I,
there you go.
you
You're
know,
one of them. All right.
I am one of them, right? And in a lot of conversations I have with donors in the community, my age and younger, I recognize my own patterns of behavior within those conversations, right? So the collective we, the millennials, we don't give impulsively. We give intentionally. I think we want clarity, we want the full story, and we want alignment. We want the deeper why, not just like the campaign headline. And I think this is different because I think that older generations they often give because of civic duty. That was something that was installed, or tithing, or anything like that. Something you did because it was the right thing, and certainly it is the right thing, and hopefully they continue to give. But millennials are, I don't like to say judgy. We're
Hmm.
discerning. We are discerning,
That's
right?
much better. Discerning's way better
Yeah.
than judgy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So when they support an organization, they're looking for that long-term alignment, right? The transparency, the authenticity, and being a part of something. Like, we want participation. It's so hard to find community at this age. I can't imagine what it's like for younger folks too, right? They don't want to just give a gift and walk away. They want to volunteer, want to advocate. More younger generations are boots on the ground. They're doing the work. They're sharing the posts. They're going deeper into the missions. They want that community experience. And so leaders, nonprofit leaders who invite them into that co-creation, right? Even in small ways, that increases loyalty. And of course, if it's a cool org that's invited me to be part of a cool mission, I'm going to tell my friends about it, right?
Exactly. That's right. That's
Yeah.
the best way of word of mouth spreading someone who's a quote satisfied customer or committed
Yeah.
customer. Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
love that. No, you're absolutely right. Good. And thanks for speaking from your own experience. Yeah. Anything else you want to share about that?
And I'll add one more thing because I don't think we talk about it enough. You can shed some light on this too. I think a really big piece of this conversation is the great generational wealth transfer that's already starting, right? For what, the next 2 decades, trillions? I haven't checked the latest
Right.
figures.
It keeps
Trillions of
going up, right?
popping
Yeah,
up, are gonna shift from the baby boomers to millennials and Gen Z, and, a lot of donors, millennials, Gen Z, we're not wealthy yet.
right, right, yeah.
You know?
Hasn't come to you yet.
Yeah, yeah, no, it won't be coming to me, but these generations, they will be inheriting this wealth, and they're gonna be managing wealth or influencing family giving decisions, and so they're gonna be making decisions differently, right? There is a premium on that now. They want to be comfortable with that. So, they wanna now's the time to start planting seeds, right? Even with your older generations, not like, "Hey, have you thought about when you go, what you're gonna do?" But, just
Awkward
framing that.
conversation. Yeah.
Yeah, framing it about legacy and values, and some people I've had this conversation with someone where they built out a legacy giving program. They've never done it before. The landing page and everything, and just started talking to some donors, and they're like, "We're so glad you asked because we had no idea." Right? So it's as simple as that. So there's kind of that twofold, right? How you're engaging the younger folks, but also how you're setting up for the future.
That's a great way to say that. And I think I want to tie that into, we talked about earlier, donor fatigue and the uncertainty of the economic markets, obviously the slash of a lot of federal government funding. So, kind of getting to that, if you're engaging in those ways and asking about legacy, and I think that's exactly right. Asking people what they want their legacy to be, what are those missions that really still drive you, and what would you like to pass on to the next generation. You mentioned the kind of going back to the basics, which I like, and I think you're very right on that, of really making things meaningful, building relationships as the primary thing you do, particularly in the age of AI. Highly relational outreaches is even more important, to build those relationships. Are there other things that you are seeing people do that are doing that are really effective when it comes to donor engagement? I think particularly with those that when they're maybe facing donor fatigue, where they're just people are kind of tired of them reaching out. Is there ways that they've kind of freshened up their way of connecting with donors? And again, I know it comes out of that relationship, right? It's the relational connection first, but anything else beyond that, once they have that connection, how are they kind of bringing up some excitement around the mission of their organization?
Okay, I'm gonna give you a hot take here.
All right. Oh, I love
Uh,
this. This is good. Okay. Listen up, listeners. Hot take
yep,
here.
yep. And others may not agree with me. I often think that donor fatigue is misdiagnosed.
We'll be right back. Are you looking for an easy and effective way to boost your nonprofit's donations? Well, look no further than DonorBox, the online fundraising platform that streamlines your fundraising efforts, maximizes donations, and simplifies giving for your supporters. With DonorBox, you can create beautiful donation forms, accept digital wallet payments, track donations, and send auto receipts. And the best part? There are no setup or monthly fees and no long-term contracts required. So what are you waiting for? Visit donorbox.org today to get started. That is www.donorbox.org.
I don't think donors are tired of giving. I think they're tired of giving without understanding the meaning behind it. Plain as that. They're tired of feeling disconnected from the mission, right? So when leaders who are doing all this well, they're leaning heavy into that clarity, the transparency, the storytelling. They're communicating regularly, not constantly, right? It's not spam, but it's about progress, it's about challenges, it's about impact, and they're centering it all around that story, right? And unique their unique positioning in the sector, right? And they're doing it in a way that makes donors feel like they're a part of the work. So I'd say that you asked about strategies, what people can be doing. I'm seeing strong leaders sharing in progress updates, right? Again, this is nothing groundbreaking, but communicating intentionally, not just to, again, be this squeaky wheel. So, but not just the polished success stories either, but the real honest picture of what's happening. Some of my favorite emails are all lowercase, kind of stream of consciousness, like, all made this happen. Here's a picture of this cow that's happy. And boy, does that make me feel good. It's not that polished, heavily curated. It's the here's what went well this month. Here's what surprised us. Here's what we're adjusting. Here's where you fit into this picture. And donors love that. And it doesn't have to be all the feel good stuff, but the things that truly make them feel like they've got buy-in. And again, we talked about, okay, someone who may not give this year, it may not be that they're done giving. They might just be going through something. So giving your audience multiple ways to participate, that storytelling piece, volunteering, spreading the word, because that participation builds that emotional investment. And when they feel useful, right, they will stay engaged even if they can't be financially useful at the moment. I think gratitude, I know, right? It cannot be an afterthought. People who feel valued stay. That's a life rule. It's a life rule. So you got to make it into your culture, right? Yeah, and not just in your communications, right? In every way that you can show up. And that's where your outreach makes a difference, where your technology makes a difference. It's all those things that layer up. So, yeah, I think donors are not tired of giving. They're just tired of this, the same old kind of curated stuff from all the nonprofits.
Okay. I like this. Well, I appreciate you pushing back on that in the sense that basically what you're saying, if I'm hearing this correctly, that you have not really found that's true donor fatigue. They're not tired of giving. They're just lost the mission connection of where they're giving. They're not seeing the impact of their gifts, of their investment, really. So that's really what you're seeing more. And therefore, there's a way around that by engaging them in different ways, making sure they know the impact of their gift, that you can measure your impact. And then I love what you were talking about of the progress updates, because I think that's true. I think a lot of us, I thought about that even as I led the organization I led, you felt this pressure of like, you present a finished product, a finished program, the conclusion of the program versus, hey, we're moving towards this goal. We're not quite there yet, but here's the progress report. I think that is actually brilliant because you're bringing them in to the process and helping them see the progress. So you're kind of opening the curtain and saying, hey, this is where we are. And we've learned some things. Maybe we may even made some mistakes, but we're moving towards this mission. Thank you so much for your support. I'm going to guess, I think you're right on that's going to generate more giving if they can. And if they can't give financially, they're going to be more engaged volunteering or supporting in different ways that are non-monetary because they're part of the process.
Yes, exactly. And I'll piggyback off of that too about regular communication and those updates within that. I think I've seen some organizations make the mistake of, okay, well, we don't have anything good to update on. These aren't exciting figures or numbers or stats, or we don't have great news to deliver. So they don't communicate. And silence creates doubt. And I think that is an over communicating. So even if you don't feel like there's anything you're excited to communicate on, just say, hey, we're here. We're here. We're just checking in. I mean, and candidly, this is where we're at. As the progress is steady but slow. And, that's a big part of it too.
That's a powerful statement. Silence creates doubt in people. What is going on over there, right? What are they doing with the money that I gave them? I think that's so true. Yeah. So communication, such an important role. Yeah, I love it. Okay, so we've already talked about some of the big challenges we're facing in the nonprofit social impact sector, finding new donors, donor retention, keeping up with technology. I do like the idea of dive into AI because there's so much we could talk about. And we did talk about it a little bit, you and I did last time. You've had people on your own show talk about it. I've had lots of people talk about it on my show. And then I think I shared with you, I was invited to speak at a conference actually in DC about a month ago. And the whole conference actually was for-profit businesses about AI automation and workflow automation, things like that. But then they really wanted to start having this apply to the nonprofit world. So I got invited with Julia Campbell, another podcaster. And so we spoke and did this breakout session about how is AI enhancing and improving, or could enhance and improve, nonprofits and social impact organizations. So one of the things, let's dive into this then. For AI, what are you seeing where there's this balance between AI is going to just be our savior and bring everything that we ever wanted, to the skepticism of, no, don't use AI at all, because that's not what we're about as a nonprofit organization. We're highly relational, et cetera, et cetera. Where have you found organizations finding that sweet spot where they're utilizing AI for good, they're utilizing it to maximize their impact? What are some things that you've seen that actually have been working without any kind of compromise of a mission?
Yeah. I think you hit the nail on the head. I think we've kind of moved out of that hype cycle, right, into something much more practical and grounded. And I think maybe all of us, especially once AI started becoming a thing, we went through all the stages of, skepticism and then excitement and, is this ethical, and all these questions. And leaders were asking, is AI going to replace us? And they're not asking that anymore, right? I think people are asking now, like you said, how do we make these important things that we need to do easier and our human things stronger, and honestly, that's the exact right mindset. So I see AI, at least with our own organizations and even in my own work, right? I was quite the skeptic for quite a while. And there's so much to learn. And I'm certainly not an expert. There's so many ways you can use it, but it's becoming that quiet behind the scenes partner that just takes work off of people's plates. It's not work away from them necessarily. It's helping with things that drain our hours of focus. It's cleaning up our donor data. It's organizing lists, spotting patterns, drafting first versions of impact reports, preparing talking points, pulling insights from reports. And that's how I see our organizations using it. It's that, especially for that data piece. And all those little tasks that kind of clog up a fundraiser's day. I think that AI can now get like 70% of the way done in minutes, and again, this is not replacing the relationship. It just clears the path for it, right? So what donors feel, and I think this is the important part, isn't the AI, right? They feel the results of it. So the thank yous that go out quickly, the donor journey that is rolling out smoothly, it's the updates that actually reflect their interests. It's, messages that feel like a continuation of their relationship and not another mass appeal. And a sense that the organization remembers them, even when staff are stretched thin, right? So I think leaders that are doing it well are approaching AI the same way that they would approach like onboarding a new staff member, right? Into it with, yeah, with a clear path, your boundaries and your intention. Like they're saying, here's what this tool helps with. Here's where the human touch is absolutely non-negotiable, right? And I think that clarity creates a much more ethical use of the technology. So I tend to be long-winded here. I'd say, in short, it's just AI creates consistency. There's a lot of ways you can use it. There's not like a one size fits all, but using it to make your donors feel seen and communicate with you in a thoughtful way. There's a theme here today, isn't there?
Yeah, no, I love that. Okay, so maybe a follow-up on that is, for people that have limited budgets, which is most nonprofits, what is realistic? What have you found is realistic in terms of maybe either a budget amount, a dollar amount, or maybe the type of AI that you utilize where you can really see that benefit, but you're not breaking the bank and you're not depending on it so much that now it's unhealthy that you're depending on it, right? You've lost that personal connection, with just your people and your donor and your community. What have you found is kind of that maybe sweet spot again when it comes to investing in it financially and utilizing it in your everyday nonprofits?
I'll tell you this, I have never paid for an AI tool.
Oh,
And
interesting. Okay.
I have never paid for an AI tool. I'd say where you should invest is if you're using a CRM that has a built-in AI assistant, worth it. This is a cautionary tale. If you are using ChatGPT or Gemini, do not upload your donor lists into those systems and ask for them to
That's
sort it
a
out.
problem. Hmm.
It goes out into the ether. That is not safe. It is not ethical. So if you are using Yes, so if you are using a platform that offers, an AI assistant, invest in that because that stays all within the platform,
Yes,
right?
good point.
And I can't
Really
give
good
you a
point.
price range necessarily, but that means that it can go into your donor data. It can make you a pie chart of your demographics, of your giving pattern, and it's just there. And your platform should have strict security standards. All that will be encrypted and safe, no matter what. So that doesn't necessarily answer your question, but if there's a need to invest in that, you got to do it. You got to do it.
So fascinating that, you've not paid for any AI tools. I think that's interesting that, and here you are, you work for DonorBox, which is a, major organization that has so many great tools. And that's maybe why you've got all these other great tools. I love it. Well, I think that's what I wanted to mention, that again, DonorBox has been this wonderful, wonderful partner and sponsor of my podcast for a couple of years now. And so it's so fun. I've been able to see up close the team and what you offer. And maybe to close out, for those who maybe are new to DonorBox, like, talk to me more about what would be a good place for them to come and check out all the different tools, whether it be AI or not, CRM tools perhaps, because I know you have a lot of them. So what would be the first step for my listeners who have not yet checked out DonorBox?
Yes, thank you. If you are not familiar with DonorBox, you can check us out simply at donorbox.org. We have plans for all types of users. We pride ourselves in being accessible, right? We have free plans, pro plans, premium plans that come with all the bells and whistles. And soon we'll have some exciting announcements about CRM and all sorts of helpful assistance along the way. So if you're looking for a place to really see your donors and create a journey within that, be able to look at those patterns and engage them in a way, get out of those spreadsheets, perhaps DonorBox is a good spot for you to start. But beyond just using our tech, we have an amazing wealth of educational resources. So again, if you just check out donorbox.org, we have a resources tab. You can find our nonprofit blog where our team publishes a handful of blogs every single week. We have a DonorBox library that has templates and PDFs and guides and all sorts of cheat sheets for what you do every day. We've got the nonprofit podcast, right? So we publish every week on anywhere that you listen to your podcast, and our YouTube channel. So, help tutorials, tips, inspirational stories. So we try to support all, right? Because education is empowerment. Your tech can do a lot, but it's those best practices that you put behind it that really make it sustainable.
Well, it's been so good, Jena. Thanks for being on the show, and just love hearing what you're learning as you go to all these conferences and talk to so many people across the country. And then for my listeners, definitely encourage you to check out DonorBox. Again, I've been working with them. There's a reason why, I like having them as a sponsor, because I think their products are really good and they provide really good resources. No matter what size of nonprofit you are, you'll find, I think, a resource that may just fit you. So I'll leave some information in my show notes. You can just click on that, check out DonorBox. But again, Jena, thanks for taking time to be on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, thanks again, listeners, for checking in, and we'll see you next week. Hey, friends. Well, I wanted you to know that this podcast can be found on iTunes, Spotify, Amazon, Google Podcasts, and wherever you listen to other podcasts. I also want to encourage you to like, subscribe, and share this podcast with others. This will actually help us get this great content out to more nonprofit leaders just like you. You can also join the Nonprofit Leadership Podcast community. Find other resources and interviews of past guests, all on my website, nonprofitleadershippodcast.org. Well, thanks again for listening, and until next time, keep making your world better. This podcast is sponsored by DonorBox. DonorBox, helping you help others with the best donation forms in the business.